The arrogant contact commander Zara Voss was reviewing the morning intelligence reports when the alarms began screaming throughout the Global Defense Command Center. The massive underground facility, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Colorado mountains, had never experienced a code red alert in its 15-year history. Officers rushed to their stations as emergency lights bathed the command center in an ominous crimson glow. "Commander Voss, we have an unprecedented situation," called out Lieutenant Sarah Kane from the communications console. Her voice carried a mixture of excitement and fear that made Zara's stomach tighten. "We're receiving a transmission from outside our solar system. It's definitely not from any human source." Zara set down her coffee cup and moved swiftly to the central command platform. Around her, dozens of technicians worked frantically at their stations, their faces illuminated by the glow of multiple screens displaying incoming data. The main display showed a 3-dimensional map of the solar system with a pulsing red dot moving slowly toward Earth's position. "How far out are they?" Zara asked, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. After decades of searching for extraterrestrial life, contact had finally come, but something about the situation felt wrong. "Approximately 2 light-years from Earth, Commander. At their current speed, they'll reach our solar system in 6 weeks, replied Dr. Marcus Chen, the facility's chief science officer. His usually neat appearance was disheveled, his gray hair standing at odd angles from running his hands through it. "But Commander, there's something else. The signal strength suggests this isn't a small exploration vessel. We're detecting multiple, large objects moving in formation." Zara felt her blood run cold. "Multiple objects? How many are we talking about?" "Preliminary scans indicate at least 50 ships, each one significantly larger than anything in our current fleet. This looks like a military formation, not a peaceful first contact mission." The weight of the situation settled over the command center like a heavy blanket. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for generations, but they had always imagined it would be different. Scientists had envisioned peaceful meetings with curious explorers, not the arrival of what appeared to be an invasion fleet. "Put the transmission through the main speakers," Zara ordered. "Let's hear what they have to say." The sound that filled the command center was unlike anything the humans had ever heard. It was a series of complex harmonic tones that seemed to vibrate through the air itself. The alien language was both beautiful and terrifying, carrying undertones of absolute authority and dismissal. Professor Elena Rodriguez, the facility's expert in xenolinguistics, worked frantically at her translation station. She had spent years developing theoretical frameworks for alien communication, but she had never imagined she would need to use them under such circumstances. "I'm getting partial translations," Elena announced, her fingers flying across her keyboard. "They're using mathematical concepts as a foundation, but the syntax is incredibly complex. Give me a few more minutes." The transmission continued for exactly 7 minutes before cutting off abruptly. The silence that followed was deafening. Every person in the command center waited breathlessly for Elena's analysis. "I've got it," Elena said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "They call themselves the Nexari Empire. They're demanding immediate and unconditional surrender of Earth and all human territories. They're giving us exactly 48 hours to comply." The command center erupted in shocked murmurs. Zara raised her hand for silence. "What happens if we refuse?" Elena's face was pale as she read from her translation. "Complete planetary sterilization. They say they've done this to 17 other worlds that refuse to submit. They consider us a primitive species that should be grateful for the opportunity to serve their empire. Dr. Chen stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overriding his fear. Did they mention anything about their technology or capabilities? They're boasting about their weapon systems, Alina replied. They claim their ships can destroy entire continents with single shots. They seem to think we're so primitive that we couldn't possibly pose any threat to them. Zara activated the secure communication link to the World Council. Within minutes, world leaders were connected to the emergency session. President Harrison of the United Earth Federation appeared on the main screen, his face grim with determination. Commander Voss, what are our options? The president asked without preamble. From a purely military standpoint, we're outgunned and outnumbered, Zara replied honestly. But we have something they don't expect. Time to prepare and the element of surprise. They're so confident in their superiority that they're giving us 48 hours to surrender. That's 48 hours we can use to our advantage. Dr. Chen cleared his throat. Actually, Commander, I think we have more advantages than they realize. I've been working on some theoretical defense projects that might be applicable to this situation. Projects that the Nexari couldn't possibly know about. The president leaned forward. What kind of projects, Dr. Chen? Quantum field manipulation, gravitational distortion, weapons, and something I call adaptive shielding. The technology is experimental, but given what we're facing, it might be our only hope. Over the next 6 hours, the world's greatest minds gathered in the Global Defense Command Center. Scientists, engineers, and military strategists worked together to develop a response to the Nexari threat. The plan they created was ambitious, dangerous, and relied heavily on the aliens' overconfidence. The key to our strategy, Dr. Chen explained to the assembled team, is that the Nexari expect us to be helpless. They've conquered 17 worlds, and apparently each one surrendered without putting up significant resistance. They don't know that humans have a very different response to existential threats. Lieutenant Kane studied the tactical displays. What about their ship designs? Can we learn anything from the scans? That's the interesting part, Dr. Chen replied. Their ships are massive and heavily armed, but they're designed for intimidation rather than actual combat. They've never had to fight a species that fought back effectively. Their formations are ceremonial, not tactical. As the 48-hour deadline approached, the Nexari sent additional messages. Each transmission was more condescending than the last, with Supreme Commander Dex personally addressing Earth's leaders. The alien commanders' translated words dripped with contempt for humanity's perceived weakness. Small creatures of the third planet, Dex's message began. Your time of independence ends now. You will be relocated to agricultural worlds where your species can serve the Empire's needs. Your resistance is futile, your technology is laughable, and your civilization is a mere footnote in galactic history. The message continued for nearly an hour, detailing the Nexari's plans for humanity. Humans would be separated by age and ability, sent to different worlds to work in mines, farms, and factories. Earth itself would be strip-mined for its resources, its ecosystems destroyed to fuel the Empire's expansion. Commander Voss watched the transmission with growing anger. The Nexari weren't just threatening conquest, they were planning genocide. They spoke of humans as if they were livestock to be managed and exploited. They're making a mistake, Zara said quietly to Dr. Chen. They think fear will paralyze us. They don't understand that fear makes humans fight harder. Dr. Chen nodded. Their intelligence about our species is completely wrong. They've observed our technology and assumed we're primitive. But they haven't studied our history, our culture, or our psychology. They don't know what humans do when they're backed into a corner. The final 12 hours before the deadline were a frenzy of activity. Secret installations around the world activated systems that had been theoretical just days before. Dr. Chun's quantum field generators came online, creating invisible barriers around Earth's major cities. Gravitational distortion weapons were deployed in orbit, disguised as communication satellites. Most importantly, humanity's greatest weapon was being prepared: their ability to adapt, innovate, and fight as a united species when faced with extinction. Supreme Commander Vex stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the small blue planet grow larger on his view screen. His reptilian features showed no emotion as he contemplated the coming conquest. The Nexari Empire had perfected the art of galactic domination, and Earth would be just another trophy in their collection. The deadline has passed, his tactical officer reported. The humans have sent no response to our ultimatum. Dex's scaled lips curled in what might have been amusement. Typical. They probably don't even have the technology to respond across interstellar distances. Begin the standard intimidation approach. Fire one shot at their moon to demonstrate our power. The Nexari fleet moved into attack formation, their massive ships creating an imposing silhouette against the stars. Each vessel was a kilometer long, bristling with weapons that could level mountains. The aliens had used this same approach on 17 worlds, and it had never failed. But as the Nexari fleet approached Earth's defensive perimeter, something unexpected happened. Dr. Chun's quantum field generators activated, creating a shimmering barrier around the planet. The Nexari sensors immediately detected the energy signature, but their computers couldn't identify the technology. Supreme Commander, his science officer called out, "We're detecting unknown energy patterns around the planet. This technology doesn't match any known civilization." For the first time in centuries, Dex felt a flicker of uncertainty. The humans weren't supposed to have any advanced technology. Their intelligence reports had been very clear about Earth's primitive status. "Analyze the energy patterns," Dex ordered. How could such a backward species develop something we don't recognize? As the Nexari fleet continued its approach, similar energy signatures began appearing throughout the solar system. What the aliens didn't know was that humanity's 48 hours of preparation had been the most productive period in their species' history. The stage was set for a confrontation that would forever change the balance of power in the galaxy. The Nexari Empire, confident in their technological superiority, was about to discover that they had made a fatal error in judgment. They had underestimated humanity's greatest strength, the ability to achieve the impossible when survival was at stake. The human response the Nexari fleet had expected to find a defenseless world filled with primitive beings cowering in fear. Instead, they found something that challenged every assumption they had made about humanity. As Supreme Commander Vex's flagship approached Earth's orbital space, the quantum field barriers flared to life, creating a web of energy that surrounded the planet like a protective shell. Commander Zara Voss watched the alien fleet's approach from the Global Defense Command Center, her heart pounding with nervous energy. The next few hours would determine whether humanity survived or became another footnote in the Nexari Empire's conquest records. "All stations report ready," Lieutenant Kane announced from her tactical console. "Dr. Chen's defense grid is fully operational and our hidden weapons platforms are in position." Dr. Chen stood at the central command console, his fingers dancing across holographic controls that had been theoretical concepts just days ago. The quantum field generators hummed, with power creating distortions in space-time that would confuse the Nexari sensors and disrupt their weapon systems. The beauty of our approach, Dr. Chen explained to the gathered command staff, is that we're not trying to match their technology. We're using principles they've never encountered. They've conquered worlds by overwhelming them with superior firepower, but they've never faced an enemy that fights with pure innovation. The first sign that something was wrong came when the Nexari fleet tried to fire their intimidation shot at Earth's moon. The massive energy beam that should have carved a canyon across the lunar surface instead dissipated harmlessly against the quantum barriers. Its power scattered across multiple dimensions. Supreme Commander Vex stared at his tactical display in disbelief. How is this possible? Our weapons are designed to penetrate any known defensive system. His science officer, a tall Nexari named Vex, worked frantically at his console. Supreme Commander, the energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. The humans appear to be manipulating fundamental forces in ways that shouldn't be possible with their level of technology. Dex's reptilian features contorted with rage. Impossible. Our intelligence reports were thorough. These creatures barely have spaceflight capability. They can't have developed anything that could challenge our empire. But even as he spoke, Dex knew something was terribly wrong. The humans weren't responding as conquered species should. They weren't broadcasting surrender messages or pleading for mercy. Instead, they were actively resisting with technology that seemed to defy known physics. Back on Earth, Professor Elena Rodriguez was coordinating with resistance cells that had been secretly established around the world. Each cell had been equipped with Dr. Chun's adaptive technology, allowing them to operate independently while remaining connected to the global defense network. The Nexari are trying to land ground forces in major population centers, Alina reported. But their transport ships are being disrupted by our field generators. They can't maintain stable flight patterns in the quantum distortion fields. Dr. Chen smiled grimly. That's exactly what we hoped for. Their technology is so advanced that it relies on perfect environmental conditions. When we change the fundamental properties of space around them, their systems can't adapt. The real surprise came when the Nexari attempted their standard planetary bombardment. Their massive ships opened fire with weapons that should have been capable of destroying entire continents. But instead of devastating Earth's surface, the energy beams were caught by gravitational distortion fields and redirected back toward the alien fleet. Supreme Commander Vex watched in horror as his own weapons turned against his ships. 3 Nexari vessels were destroyed instantly, their hulls cracking under the impact of their own firepower. The remaining ships scattered in confusion, their formation breaking apart as commanders tried to understand what was happening. Report, Dex demanded, his voice sharp with panic. The humans are using our own weapons against us, Vex replied, his voice barely above a whisper. They've somehow created gravitational fields that can redirect energy beams. Supreme Commander, this is impossible. No species has ever developed this capability. Lieutenant Kane monitored the alien fleet's movements from her console, a fierce smile playing across her face. They're breaking formation. Their ships are trying to maintain safe distances from each other, but they're losing coordination. Commander Voss activated the communication system. All defense stations, this is Commander Voss. Phase 2 is authorized. Show them what human ingenuity can accomplish. Around the world, hidden installations activated weapons, systems that had been built using principles the Nexari had never encountered. Instead of energy weapons or missiles, these systems used controlled gravitational anomalies to create artificial black holes. The tiny singularities, each no larger than a marble, were guided by quantum computers toward the alien ships. The effect was devastating. Nexari vessels that had survived the bombardment of 17 worlds were torn apart by gravitational forces they couldn't comprehend. Their shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were useless against the warping of space-time itself. Dr. Chen watched the tactical display with a mixture of pride and sadness. They never understood that superior technology means nothing if you can't adapt to new challenges. The Nexari conquered other worlds because those civilizations tried to fight them with conventional weapons. We're fighting them with physics itself. Supreme Commander Vex realized that his empire's greatest conquest was turning into its greatest disaster. Half of his fleet was destroyed or crippled, and the remaining ships were scattered across the solar system, unable to coordinate their attacks. "Open a communication channel to the human leadership," Vex ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. "We need to negotiate a withdrawal." But Commander Voss had no intention of letting the Nexari escape to threaten other worlds. "Dr. Chen, can your systems track their ships if they try to leave the solar system?" "Better than that," Dr. Chen replied. "I can make sure they never reach another inhabited world. The quantum field generators can create navigational disruptions. That will send them into deep space with no way to return." Professor Alina Rodriguez had been monitoring Nexari communications throughout the battle. "Commander, they're trying to call for reinforcements, but their communications are being scrambled by our quantum fields. They can't get a clear signal through to their empire." The final phase of the battle was almost anticlimactic. The surviving Nexari ships, unable to coordinate their attacks or call for help, were systematically disabled by gravitational weapons they couldn't understand or counter. Some ships tried to surrender, but Commander Voss knew that showing mercy to an empire that had destroyed 17 worlds would only encourage future aggression. "Target their command ship," Voss ordered. "If we eliminate their leadership, the rest of their empire will think twice before threatening Earth again." Supreme Commander Vex's final moments were spent in shocked disbelief. His species had ruled the galaxy for millennia, conquering world after world with overwhelming technological superiority. The idea that a primitive species could defeat them had never occurred to him, as his flagship was torn apart by artificial gravity wells. Vex transmitted one final message to any Nexari ship that might survive. "The humans are not what they appear to be. They are dangerous beyond imagination. Warn the Empire." But the warning would never reach the Nexari home worlds. Dr. Chun's quantum field generators ensured that no ship would escape the solar system to spread word of humanity's capabilities. In the aftermath of the battle, Commander Voss stood before the assembled world leaders via holographic conference. The victory had been complete, but everyone understood that this was just the beginning. The Nexari Empire controlled thousands of worlds, Voss reported. When they realize that one of their fleets has disappeared, they'll send more ships to investigate. We need to be ready for whatever comes next. Dr. Chen was already working on new defensive technologies, his mind racing with possibilities. The quantum field generators are just the beginning. Now that we know what's possible, we can develop even more advanced systems. We can create weapons that will make the Nexari Empire think twice about threatening any world. Lieutenant Kane was coordinating with space forces around the world, preparing for the possibility of future invasions. Commander, we should consider taking the offensive. If the Nexari Empire has conquered 17 worlds, there are billions of beings living under their oppression. We could liberate them. Professor Alina Rodriguez had been analyzing the captured Nexari technology and communication logs. The Empire is vast, but it's also fragile. They rely on fear and overwhelming force to maintain control. If we can show other oppressed worlds that the Nexari can be defeated, we might start a galactic revolution. Commander Voss looked out at the stars, knowing that humanity's destiny had changed forever. They were no longer an isolated species on a single world. They had become a force that could challenge the greatest empire in the galaxy. Prepare a message for any civilization that might be listening, Voss ordered. Tell them that Earth stands ready to defend any world that chooses freedom over oppression. The Nexari Empire's reign of terror ends now. The message was broadcast across the galaxy using the quantum communication systems that Dr. Chen had developed. It reached hundreds of oppressed worlds, carrying a simple but powerful promise. Humanity would fight for anyone who wanted to be free. The Nexari Empire had contacted Earth, expecting to find another victim. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. The age of human expansion was about to begin, and the universe would never be the same as the last of the Nexari ships was destroyed. Dr. Chen looked up at the stars with a mixture of excitement and determination. They thought we were primitive. He said quietly, "They were wrong. We're not just advanced. We're adaptable. And that makes us the most dangerous species in the galaxy." The victory celebration would be brief. Humanity had work to do, worlds to liberate, and a galaxy to change. The Nexari Empire had made the mistake of underestimating the human spirit, and now they would pay the price for their arrogance. Earth's message to the galaxy was clear. Those who threatened freedom would face the full force of human ingenuity and determination. The age of galactic oppression was ending, and the age of human leadership had begun. Asterisk.
First contact under fire. Admiral Sarah Martinez stood at the bridge of the ESS Nautilus, Earth's first diplomatic vessel designed for peaceful first contact. The ship's sleek lines and deliberately non-threatening profile had been carefully crafted to present humanity's best face to the stars. As they approached the designated meeting point with the Celesti, a species known for their advanced gravity manipulation technology, Martinez felt the weight of humanity's future on her shoulders. Contact bearing 047. Admiral, reported Lieutenant Commander James Chen from his sensor station. Celesti vessel approaching as scheduled. The Celesti ship was beautiful, a crystalline structure that seemed to flow through space like liquid starlight. As protocol dictated, both vessels maintained their distance while establishing communications. The first exchange between humanity and the Celesti was going exactly as planned. Until it wasn't. Multiple hostile signatures dropping out of FTL. The tactical officer's voice cut through the ceremonial atmosphere like a knife. Energy signatures match no known configurations. Before either the human or Celesti vessels could react, space itself seemed to tear apart as massive biomechanical ships emerged from hyperspace. Their organic-looking hulls pulsed with an eerie red light, and without warning or declaration, they opened fire. Shields up, Martinez ordered, but she knew their diplomatic vessel wasn't built for combat. The first salvo from the unknown attackers ripped through their defensive screens like they weren't even there. All hands, brace for impact. The Celesti ship fared no better, its crystalline structure cracking under the assault. Their new ally's distress call echoed through the command channel. "This is Ambassador Lyra of the Celesti Confederation. We are under attack by the Vorkath. They are a species that consumes technological civilizations. Please, if you can hear us, Martinez watched in horror as the Celeste ship's main drive section began to fail. Without intervention, both vessels would be destroyed in minutes. That's when her years of experience commanding deep-sea rescue operations kicked in. Engineering. Can we extend our structural integrity field around the Celeste vessel? The system isn't designed for. I didn't ask what it was designed for. Can we do it? A pause. Yes, Admiral, but it would require routing power from virtually every other system. Martinez smiled grimly. Just like the Antarctic rescue of 47. Do it. Helm, bring us alongside the Celeste vessel. We're going to show these Vorkath something they've never seen before. The Nautilus, despite its wounds, maneuvered close to the Celeste ship. As the structural integrity field expanded, it created a bubble of reinforced space around both vessels. The Vorkath weapons, while still devastating, now had to contend with the combined resistance of both ships working in concert. Ambassador Lyra, Martinez broadcast, we're going to try something unconventional. Can your gravity manipulation technology create a localized distortion? Yes, but in our damaged state, it would be unstable. Perfect. That's exactly what we need. Martinez laid out her plan quickly. The Celeste would use their gravity technology to create a controlled singularity, while the human vessel would use its structural integrity field to contain and direct the force. It was a technique Martinez had used countless times on Earth, containing pressure differentials to protect damaged submarines or underwater structures. The principles were the same, only the scale had changed. The Vorkath, confident in their superior technology, pressed their attack. They didn't expect their prey to fight back with such unorthodox tactics. As they moved in for the kill, the combined human-Celeste defense turned into an offense. The controlled singularity, wrapped in the modified structural integrity field, acted like a massive depth charge. When detonated, it created a ripple effect through space that the Vorkath's biomechanical ships couldn't compensate for. Their organic components, sensitive to gravitational fluctuations, began to tear themselves apart. It's working, Chen reported, his voice barely containing his excitement. The enemy vessels are breaking formation. Their hull integrity is failing. Martinez watched as the Vorkath fleet, caught off guard by the unprecedented cooperation between their intended victims, began to retreat. The few ships that remained intact jumped to FTL, leaving their damaged companions behind. In the aftermath, as emergency repairs began on both vessels, Ambassador Lyra's voice came through once more. Admiral Martinez, in all our records, no species has ever survived first contact with the Vorkath, let alone driven them back. How did you know this would work? Martinez looked out at the debris field that had once been the Vorkath attack fleet. On Earth, we have a saying. The sea teaches you to respect her power, but also how to work with it. Space isn't so different. Sometimes the best solution isn't to fight the pressure, but to redirect it. The Celeste ambassador was quiet for a moment. We have much to learn from each other, Admiral, and I suspect the Vorkath will return. Let them come, Martinez replied, already forming plans. Next time, we'll be ready. And I know quite a few fishing boat captains who'd love to try their hand at space warfare. As repair crews worked to stabilize both ships, Martinez began composing her report to Earth Command. Humanity's first contact hadn't gone as planned, but they'd gained something perhaps more valuable than a peaceful meeting. They'd gained allies who had seen firsthand what humans could do when backed into a corner. And somewhere out there, the Vorkath were learning a harsh lesson. Not all prey goes quietly into the night. The makeshift armada. 3 months after the first Vorkath encounter, the Southampton fishing docks buzzed with activity that had nothing to do with catching fish. Captain Eleanor Storm I. Chen watched as workers retrofitted her deep-sea trawler, the Stormy Petrel, with military-grade shield generators and modified harpoon launchers capable of deploying space-worthy nets. Never thought I'd see my old girl turned into a warship, she mused, running a weathered hand along the ship's hull. The Stormy Petrel wasn't alone. Hundreds of fishing vessels, cargo ships, and even old oil rigs were being converted across Earth's oceans. With the regular fleet tied up defending core worlds, humanity had to get creative. Admiral Martinez stood beside her, examining holographic blueprints of the modified vessel. Your experience hunting schools of tuna in rough seas might just save humanity, Captain. The Vorkath move in patterns similar to deep-sea predators. Who better to catch them than Earth's fishermen? The Admiral's comm unit chimed. Martin is here. Admiral, the Celesti engineers have finished integrating their gravity tech with the fishing nets, reported Lieutenant Commander Chen. The initial tests are interesting. Define interesting, Martins replied, already walking toward the testing area. Well, we may have accidentally created a localized space-time eddy, but on the bright side, the nets can now theoretically trap and hold a ship moving at sublight speeds. Eleanor grinned. Just like catching marlins, the harder they fight, the tighter the net gets. The makeshift fleet gathering in Earth's oceans was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Crab boats bristled with point defense turrets. Long-range trawlers carried experimental gravity weapons developed in collaboration with the Celesti. Even weather research vessels had been pressed into service, their sophisticated atmospheric modeling systems repurposed to predict Vorkath attack patterns. In the command center, converted from an old fisheries monitoring station, Martinez reviewed the latest intelligence. The Vorkath were moving methodically through the sector, consuming every technological civilization they encountered. But they hadn't faced humanity yet, not properly. Admiral, Eleanor called out, pointing to a simulation running on the main screen. Look at their attack formation. Reminds me of how tiger sharks herd their prey. Martinez studied the pattern. You're right. They're using the same techniques you use to drive fish into your nets. Then maybe it's time we turn the tables, Eleanor suggested. Every predator can become prey if you understand their habits well enough. The next few weeks saw intense training as fishing crews learned to operate their modified vessels in space. The learning curve was steep, but these were people used to betting their lives against the ocean's fury. Space, they found, wasn't so different, just darker and colder. The breakthrough came during a joint exercise with the Celesti. Eleanor's crew was demonstrating traditional purse seine techniques when someone had an idea. Combine the fishing nets with Celesti gravity manipulation to create what they called a space seine, a massive energy net that could trap and disable Vorkath vessels. It's insane, one of the Celesti engineers commented. Using fishing techniques against one of the most advanced hostile species in known space. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways, Eleanor replied, watching her crew deploy test nets with practiced efficiency. The sea taught us patience, respect, and how to catch things much bigger than ourselves. Why should space be any different? The fleet grew day by day. Fishing vessels from every ocean joined the cause, their crews bringing generations of knowledge about predator behavior and hunting techniques. The Celesti provided the advanced technology, but it was human experience that would make it work. Martinez stood on the bridge of her new flagship, a converted super trawler named the Terra's Net, watching as hundreds of vessels took formation. Each ship maintained perfect spacing, just as they would when trawling the open ocean. The sight brought a smile to her face. Status report, she called out. All vessels report ready, Admiral, came the response. The Celesti gravity generators are synchronized with our net deployment systems. Weather modeling AI is tracking Vorkath movement patterns with 89% accuracy. Eleanor's voice crackled over the comm. Stormy petrel ready to cast the first net, Admiral. These bastards want to hunt. Let's show them what Earth's deadliest fleet can do. As the makeshift armada prepared for its first real combat operation, Martinez couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. The Vorkath expected to find easy prey. Instead, they would face humanity's oldest profession, hunting, adapted for the space age. All vessels, maintain formation, Martinez ordered. Remember your training. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for every species these monsters have hunted. It's time to show the galaxy why you never underestimate human ingenuity." The fleet moved out, a strange but powerful amalgamation of Earth's maritime heritage and alien technology. They weren't the prettiest ships in space, nor the most advanced, but they carried something the Vorkath couldn't comprehend: thousands of years of human experience in hunting the hunters. Operation Fishing Net. The Vorkath attack fleet emerged from FTL exactly where Eleanor predicted they would. Like sharks drawn to blood in the water, they couldn't resist the apparent vulnerability of a small Celesti mining colony. But this time, the waters weren't as empty as they appeared. "Multiple hostile contacts," announced the Terra's Net's sensor operator, counting 15 Vorkath capital ships, plus support vessels. "They're moving in their standard hunting formation." Admiral Martinez nodded. "Just like you said, Captain Chen. They're herding their prey." Eleanor's voice came through clear on the command channel. "Aye, and about to swim right into our net. All trawler groups maintain radio silence and hold position." The human fleet lay in wait, their ships powered down to minimal levels and hidden within a field of stellar debris. Years of experience hiding from wary fish in Earth's oceans had taught them patience. The modified vessels, despite their military upgrades, still looked like industrial ships to casual scanning. Exactly as planned. The Vorkath fleet moved closer to the mining colony, their biomechanical ships pulsing with predatory anticipation. They'd encountered no resistance in this sector before, and they expected none now. Their first indication that something was wrong came when their forward elements triggered the outer sensor net. "Contact," whispered Lieutenant Commander Chen. "They've crossed the first marker." Martinez keyed her comm. "All vessels, execute Phase 1. Deploy primary nets." Across the debris field, dozens of fishing vessels powered up their modified trawling systems. The Celesti gravity technology, integrated with traditional fishing nets, created a web of gravitational distortions that began to close around the Vorkath fleet. "They're reacting," Eleanor reported. "Just like a school of Tuma hitting the first net. Watch them try to break formation." True to her prediction, the Vorkath ships attempted to scatter, only to find their escape routes cut off by more gravitational nets. Their organic technology, so advanced in many ways, proved surprisingly vulnerable to the simple principle of containment. "Second layer deployed," came the report from another vessel. "They're starting to realize this isn't a natural phenomenon." The Vorkath finally understood they were under attack, but their usual tactics failed them. Attempts to jump to FTL were thwarted by the gravitational distortions. Their weapons, designed to overwhelm conventional shields, dispersed harmlessly in the specialized energy fields generated by the modified fishing vessels. "Now they're angry," Eleanor observed, watching the tactical display. "Time to show them what happens when you thrash in a fisherman's net." Group 3, begin the surge. A dozen converted deep-sea trawlers activated their main drives simultaneously, creating a powerful gravimetric wave that crashed through space like a tsunami. The Vorkath ships, already trapped in the net, were battered by forces they couldn't comprehend. "Multiple hostile vessels showing signs of structural stress," reported the tactical officer. "Their organic components are failing under the gravitational shear." Martinez allowed herself a small smile. "Deploy the purse seine." This was the masterstroke of their plan. Just as fishing boats used purse seines to encircle entire schools of fish, the human fleet had developed a massive gravitational containment field. As it activated, the trapped Vorkath ships found themselves compressed into an increasingly smaller space. "They're trying to communicate," Chen announced. "First time we've ever seen them attempt diplomacy." "Funny how being on the other end of the food chain changes one's perspective," Eleanor remarked. "Should we answer them, Admiral?" Martinez considered for a moment. "Open a channel. Let's see what predators have to say when they become prey." The message from the Vorkath was brief and harsh. "Release us, or face extinction." "Interesting choice of words," Martinez replied. We've studied your species' hunting patterns. You've driven dozens of civilizations to extinction. Did you ever offer them the chance to surrender? The silence was telling. All ships, execute final phase, Martinez ordered. Let's show them how Earth deals with invasive predators. The gravitational nets contracted one final time, crushing the organic components of the Vorkath ships. Those that survived were left powerless, drifting in space like beached whales. The entire operation had taken less than an hour. As recovery vessels moved in to secure the disabled ships, Eleanor's voice crackled over the comm once more. You know, Admiral, my grandfather used to say that the biggest fish in the sea isn't always the most dangerous. It's the one that learns to adapt that survives. Martinez watched as her makeshift fleet of fishing vessels secured humanity's first major victory against the galaxy's most feared predator. Your grandfather was a wise man, Captain. Let's hope the Vorkath learned that lesson, for their sake. The battle was over, but Martinez knew this was just the beginning. Word would spread quickly through the galaxy. Humanity's fishing fleet had succeeded where advanced alien armadas had failed. The hunters had become the hunted, and the stars themselves would never be quite the same. Multiple hostile vessels showing signs of structural stress, reported the tactical officer. Their organic components are failing under the gravitational shear. Martinez allowed herself a small smile. Deploy the purse scene. This was the masterstroke of their plan. Just as fishing boats used purse scenes to encircle entire schools of fish, the human fleet had developed a massive gravitational containment field. As it activated, the trapped Vorkath ships found themselves compressed into an increasingly smaller space. They're trying to communicate, Chen announced. First time we've ever seen them attempt diplomacy. Funny how being on the other end of the food chain changes one's perspective, Eleanor remarked. Should we answer them, Admiral? Martinez considered for a moment. Open a channel. Let's see what predators have to say when they become prey. The message from the Vorkath was brief and harsh. Release us, or face extinction. Interesting choice of words, Martinez replied. We've studied your species' hunting patterns. You've driven dozens of civilizations to extinction. Did you ever offer them the chance to surrender? The silence was telling. All ships, execute final phase, Martinez ordered. Let's show them how Earth deals with invasive predators. The gravitational nets contracted one final time, crushing the organic components of the Vorkath ships. Those that survived were left powerless, drifting in space like beached whales. The entire operation had taken less than an hour. As recovery vessels moved in to secure the disabled ships, Eleanor's voice crackled over the comm once more. You know, Admiral, my grandfather used to say that the biggest fish in the sea isn't always the most dangerous. It's the one that learns to adapt that survives. Martinez watched as her makeshift fleet of fishing vessels secured humanity's first major victory against the galaxy's most feared predator. Your grandfather was a wise man, Captain. Let's hope the Vorkath learned that lesson, for their sake. The battle was over, but Martinez knew this was just the beginning. Word would spread quickly through the galaxy. Humanity's fishing fleet had succeeded where advanced alien armadas had failed. The hunters had become the hunted, and the stars themselves would never be quite the same. It's not about overwhelming force, Martinez explained to the skeptical conclave. It's about understanding behavior. Every creature, no matter how advanced, follows patterns. The key is making those patterns work against them. The next month saw the largest cooperative effort in galactic history. Alien technology merged with human experience as thousands of ships, from converted Earth fishing vessels to advanced alien cruisers, took up positions along the predicted Vorkath approach vectors. Eleanor stood on the bridge of the stormy Petrel, now equipped with experimental gravity projectors that could influence space-time like a fisherman manipulating ocean currents. You know what the crazy part is, Admiral? We're about to use techniques my family developed catching mackerel to save the galaxy. The Vorkath arrived right on schedule, their vast fleet moving through space with predatory grace. But as they approached the human defensive line, something felt wrong. The familiar currents of space-time that guided their biological navigation systems had shifted, creating new patterns they couldn't ignore. "They're taking the bait," Chen reported from his station on the Terra's net. "The whole fleet is turning into the artificial current." Martinez watched as the largest gathering of Vorkath ships in history followed the path they'd created, their biological imperative to follow the most efficient route overriding any tactical concerns. "Just like the herrings," she murmured. "Once you change their environment, they have to adapt or die." The trap was elegant in its simplicity. The modified space lanes led the Vorkath fleet into a region where multiple gravity fields intersected. As they passed the point of no return, Eleanor gave the order that would make history. "All ships, deploy the cosmic scene." Thousands of vessels activated their gravity projectors simultaneously, creating a massive distortion that wrapped around the Vorkath fleet like a fisherman's net. The predators found themselves trapped in a pocket of space-time that pulled them in every direction at once. "Message from the Vorkath flagship," Chen announced. "They're requesting parley." Martinez smiled. Amazing how quickly hunters learn diplomacy when the tide turns against them. "Open a channel." A new course. The Vorkath Supreme Commander's hologram flickered in the conference room of the Terra's net. The once proud predator species had learned a harsh lesson about underestimating their prey. Their entire fleet remained trapped in the human-designed gravity net, unable to escape, but also protected from the destructive forces that threatened to tear them apart. "You could destroy us," the commander stated, its biomechanical form pulsing with subdued colors. "Yet you hold back. Why?" Admiral Martinez glanced at Eleanor before responding. "Because good fishermen understand the importance of sustainability. Wiping out an entire species, even one as aggressive as yours, would damage the galaxy's ecosystem in ways we can't predict." The negotiations that followed would reshape galactic society. The Vorkath, faced with either adaptation or extinction, chose to evolve. Their biological drive to hunt remained, but humanity offered them a new purpose, becoming the galaxy's premier search and rescue force. "Your ships can survive conditions that would destroy conventional vessels," Eleanor explained to a group of Vorkath captains. "With some modifications, you could save lives instead of taking them." The thrill of the hunt doesn't always have to end in killing. The transformation wasn't immediate, but it was profound. The same biological adaptability that made the Vorkath fearsome predators allowed them to redirect their instincts. Within months, former hunter ships were being refitted with rescue equipment, their organic technology perfectly suited for operating in extreme conditions. In the Southampton docks, now a bustling center for galactic commerce and cultural exchange, Martinez watched as human fishing crews taught Vorkath teams the finer points of search and rescue operations. The sight of former mortal enemies working together still amazed her. "You know what the real victory was, Admiral?" Eleanor asked, standing beside her, "Not defeating them, but showing them a better way to use their skills." The Galactic Conclave formally recognized humanity's contribution by establishing the Turan Naval Academy, where species from across the galaxy came to learn what they called the human approach to space operations. The curriculum was unlike any other military training in known space, combining practical experience from Earth's oceans with advanced alien technology. The key, Martinez explained to the first class of mixed-species cadets, is understanding that advanced technology doesn't make ancient wisdom obsolete. The patterns that govern the movement of fish in Earth's oceans apply to spacecraft in the galactic core. The techniques that helped us survive storms at sea can help us navigate solar flares. 5 years after the first encounter, Eleanor stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned GSV Stormy Petroleu, a hybrid design that combined Vorkath organic technology with traditional Earth fishing vessel architecture. Below her, Earth's oceans still teemed with fishing boats, but now they shared the waters with alien vessels learning the ancient ways of human mariners. "We didn't just change how the galaxy approaches warfare," she told a group of visiting dignitaries. "We changed how it thinks about knowledge itself. The simplest solutions are often the best, even among the stars." Martinez, now Fleet Admiral of the Combined Galactic Search and Rescue Command, could only agree. The sight of Earth's fishing fleet had evolved from an object of alien curiosity to a symbol of innovation across the galaxy. Every major spacefaring race now maintained a division of fisher ships, vessels specifically designed to apply Earth's maritime techniques to space operations. As she watched a joint human-Vorkath training exercise, where converted trawlers and organic ships practiced rescue maneuvers in perfect harmony, Martinez reflected on how far they'd come. The galaxy had expected Earth to join the galactic community as students, learning from more advanced civilizations. Instead, humanity had become teachers, showing that true advancement meant understanding the fundamental patterns that connected all things, from the depths of Earth's oceans to the far reaches of space. "The sea teaches us humility," Eleanor often told new recruits, both human and alien. "Space does the same. But both also teach us that with patience, understanding, and respect for ancient wisdom, there's no challenge we can't overcome together." The greatest victory wasn't just surviving the Vorkath threat. It was transforming potential destroyers into protectors and showing the galaxy that sometimes the oldest solutions were the best ones. Earth's fishing fleet had changed the course of galactic history, not through overwhelming force or advanced technology, but through the simple wisdom earned through centuries of working with nature instead of against it. In the end, humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy wasn't their ability to fight. It was their ability to teach, to adapt, and to show that even the deadliest predators could learn new ways to swim among the stars. The end.